last few videos that I did, I talked everything credit cards. I let you know what credit cards are, how they work, what mistakes that we commonly make when we first use them, and about credit card utilization. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to read your credit card statements, because it's very important, especially when it comes down to credit card utilization, that you know how to read your credit card statements. So in this video, guys, I'm going to go over two common credit cards that people may have, especially if you're a viewer on my channel, which is a Navy Fed statement and also a Capital One credit card statement. Make sure you guys stay tuned. Back to the channel. My name is Starr Carter, and on this channel I talk personal financial education. So if that's something that you're interested in, please consider being a subscriber. Make sure you guys click on your notification and give this one a thumbs up. That's way it get pushed out to other people. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's get into today's video. In the last video, I talked about credit card utilization and why it matters. But also inside of that video, I talked about knowing how to read your statement, knowing when your statement balance is actually reported to the credit bureau, and all those good things. So that's why this video is so important, so that I can teach you guys how to know when your balance is going to actually be reported to the credit bureau. Because if your card is maxed out, or if you're over 30% of the limit, knowing when your statement actually closes and go to the actual credit bureau can mean a big game changer when you're trying to manipulate a little bit. I don't like to say manipulate, but manipulate a little bit with your credit utilization to keep your credit score as high as you possibly can. So let's go ahead and let's dive into it. I'm going to pull up my Navy Federal, the first sheet of my statement, so you guys can follow along with me. All right, so I have my Navy Federal Flash Shirt Rewards credit card statement pulled up, and I am assuming that their credit card statements all look the same because I only have the flagship card with them, okay? So let me know in the comments if your credit card statement looks different from what I have on the screen. All right, now this first box right here at the very top right here, this is some very important information right here, because this is going to tell you the most important part that you need to know about this card. The first part is knowing what the due date is. You need to know when your payment is due, because you never ever want to be late, okay? And you also need to know what the minimum is, just in case if you cannot afford to pay the actual statement balance off right here. So in the previous billing cycle, this is the amount of charges that I had right here. So this is my new balance. But if I can't afford to pay this balance off, they're telling me that the minimum that I could pay on that $1,071.17 is $20. So we already know that $20 will satisfy them as far as me not defaulting and being late on my credit card, but we know that will not even put a dent in that balance, okay? Because the interest rate is going to eat that up. So that's why it's so important to always pay your credit card balances in full every month. And if you can't afford to pay them in full, then you don't need to charge more than you can afford to pay back. That's how people get in credit card debt, okay? So let's move down just a little bit more. All right, so right here in this account summary box right here, the summary box, this gives us some more information about the card and what has taken place on the card. So my previous balance from my last cycle before now was $1,055.65, and I paid that balance back off. So that brought me back to zero, and that also means that I did not pay any interest. So that's what you're always aiming for, is not paying any interest, okay? Then it lets me know that right here, as I was just telling you guys, that my new purchases was $1,071.17, which reflect up here at the very top part of this portion of the credit card statement, okay? So those are some of the things that's going to be right here in your summary, and it's also going to tell you right here that that is my new balance. Also, when we go down here just a little bit further, it's going to tell you what my actual credit limit is on this card, which is $35,000, and because I've already charged the $1,071.17, is also going to show you what my available amount is, okay? So my available is $33,928.83 as of this statement right here. All right. Then when we go down just a little bit further, it's going to actually tell me what my cash limit is. So this is if I were to do a cash advance. So they got cash limit and then they got available cash. So my cash advance limit is 10,500, which is around 30% of my actual limit of this credit card. So if I were to go to an ATM, depending on the ATM, I can get cash out with a pen, or Navy Fed makes this very easy, a little too easy, because if you have a credit card and you have a checking account, you can actually transfer money off the credit card into the checking account. You never want to do that, because as I was saying in my credit card mistakes video, that whenever you take out a cash advance, the interest rate is charged that day, okay? It charged that day. When you make a purchase, when you do purchases like I have right here, right? That charges after so many days of the billing cycle. But if you have a cash advance, that's going to charge day one, okay? That's going to be a day one charge of 18% in my case, because when I got this card, I had not formed a relationship with Navy Fed, so they gave me their 18% default rate despite me having a high credit score, which was close, I think it was like over 770 at the time. But because I had only been a member with them for 1 month, that's why they gave me a high APR. I did my Navy Fed denials video, me talking about that, and I will link that above. Okay, so this right here, we go down just a little bit. No, I'm gonna stay right here where we at in the payment information. Let's go to the payment information. All right, so this is very important, guys, that a lot of people don't pay attention to when they're looking at their statement. So when we're looking at the statement right here, it says that our new balance right here, which we know what my new balance is because we talked about that several times already, and we already know what my minimum payment is right there, the $20, and I know that I need to have this paid by the 10th, okay? This right here is also important that you're reading the penalties right here, okay? So it says late payment warning. If we do not receive your minimum payment by the date listed above, you may have to pay a $20 late fee, and your APRs may be increased up to the penalty APR of 18%. So say if I had a 14% APR on this card and I was late by 1 day, they can give me the penalty APR. So I also talked about that when I was talking about Credit Card 101 and some of the credit card mistakes. So you definitely want to make sure that you're paying your payment on time, because usually it's not going to, if you were late, it's not going to report to the credit bureau unless you're 30 days late, right? But just being 1 day late with Navy Fed could trigger them to give me a fee, and also can trigger a 18% default rate if my rate was lower, okay? So those are some of the things that you definitely want to pay attention to. Now right here, it says minimum payment warning. Now, this is something that they added in recent years, because a lot of people don't realize how crippling credit card debt can be. So right here in the minimum payment warning, it says if you make only the minimum payment each period, you will pay more in interest and it will take you longer to pay off your balance, for example. And a lot of people don't pay this any attention because they give you an actual example of how this will look, right? So if you make no additional charges using this card, and each month you pay only the minimum payment, which is $39. Right here it says $39. You will pay off the balance shown on the statement in about 8 years, and you will end up paying $18.96. If I were to pay $39, which I'm sorry, the minimum payment, that would be $20. My bad. That would be $20, what we talked about up here. So it would be $20. It would take me 8 years to pay off $1,071.17, and it would cost me $1,896, okay? Now, if I was to pay $39, which is only $19 more than $20, it would take me 3 years to pay off the $1,071.17, and I would save $492, but it would still cost me over $300 just for the $1,071. So this is very important, guys, that you're paying attention to how much debt is costing you, okay? A lot of people don't pay that any attention. All right, so another important part that I was telling you guys about, especially when it comes to credit card utilization, is knowing when your statement actually closes. So my statement on here closes on April the 13th. So that's when this statement actually closed, and I have 31 days in my billing cycle. So this right here, this balance right here, let me see if I can make that darker. This balance right here, the 1071.17, was actually my charges that was in my previous cycle, which ended on April the 13th. Okay, so here's the good thing that we know just from this little bit of information. All right, so I know that my due date is on May 10th, and my statement date is on 5/13. So my due date and my statement date is 3 days apart. My due date is always on the 10th unless it falls on the weekend. And my statement date is always on the 13th unless it falls on the weekend. So if it falls on the weekend, it's going to be the Friday before the weekend starts, okay? And that's the same for my due date. It's going to be the Friday before the weekend starts. So me knowing that my statement date is on 5/13, which it was on 4/13 last month, that lets me know that this is the date that it actually gets reported to the credit bureau. All right, so this is when it's reported to the credit bureau. All right, so that's very important, because say if I had this card maxed out, say I was crazy and and got something for $35,000. Well, we know that that is at 100% utilization, and you never want to do that. And if you do max your card out, you want to make sure that it's paid back off by when the statement is going to be reported. So, in order for me to avoid paying interest, I need to pay it by the due date, right? I need to pay it by the due date. But in order for me to not have this high utilization reported on to the credit bureau, I need to have it paid by the statement date, which is right here. So I need to have that well back under 30%, way before the 13th of the month. So right now that I'm recording this video, it is the 29th of the month. So my statement closed on the 13th, right? So on the 13th, whatever that balance was on the 13th is what is actually was reported. But on the 14th, if I did something on the 14th, right, of May, it will not show up, okay? It will not show up in my balance to the credit bureau until June 13th, unless I pay it all back off before June 13th. So the 13th is the magical day for me to make sure that I keep my credit card utilization under 10%. Okay, so with a $35,000 credit card limit that I have on this card, and I'm only reporting the 1,071.17. In the previous month, I reported 1,055.65. I am well under that, okay? I'm well under that. I'm well under 10%, right? I would have to spend close to what, 3,000 to even hit that, and I'm not there, okay? So that is good. We want to keep it under 10%. So that is so important, guys, when you are looking at your credit card statement, that you know when things are due and when it actually report. So let's go and look at my Capital One Venture card, my Venture One card. All right. Now on this card, same thing. I got a box right here that tells me when the payment is due, what the balance was, and what the minimum payment is due. Now all this is zero because I rarely use this card. I rarely use any of my Capital One credit cards because they're not good cards. I don't like the company. Wherever you are with them, when you first get a card with them, they will bucket you there. So I do not use my cards with them. I just keep them active because I've had this card since 2014. All right, I've had this card since 2014, and this card used to be a Quicksilver card, and it graduated it probably took 10 years for it to graduate, but it eventually graduated and upgraded to this Venture One card. But same thing, I don't get all the perks. I feel like if I was a customer that came to Capital One with stellar credit. Okay, if I came to Capital One now and my credit score is 780, they would roll out the red carpet for me. But because I got this credit, this Capital One card, when it was a Quicksilver card with a $300 limit, they have bucketed me. So it doesn't matter what card I get, what I do, it doesn't matter. They're gonna, suck towards me as far as a customer. Okay. I hate to say that term, but it is no other way to describe it. All right. So this is my sock drawer card. So I only use it just to keep it active. So right now you will see where I had a transaction for $11.75 and I paid it back off. And I don't even know what that was for. It was probably like something random that I bought at a store, just to keep it under 10% and to also keep the card active. And so I did that back probably in March, because this was due April the 4th. And as soon as I did it, I probably paid it right back off. Like I said, just to keep it active, not really worried about credit card utilization on this card. So this one has a 31-day billing cycle as well. And right here, like I said, it gives you the information letting you know what my credit limit is, what's available, what my cash advance limit is. And my cash advance limit is actually higher than what I would expect it, because usually the cash advance limit is 30% or whatever the available credit limit is. So that's really shocking that they gave me a cash advance limit that high. So wow. Anywho, so I want to show you this on the Capital One side, because the Capital One does not show you the statement date like this Navy Fed did. So this Navy Fed said my statement closing date is right here. But on this Capital One card, it doesn't say that anywhere. It doesn't tell me. This is my first page of my Capital One card, and it doesn't tell me when it closed. But there's no worry about that, okay? No worry. Because right here, as long as you know this closing date, this is the statement date right here, March the 10th. So whenever you have a range, this is a range right here. Whenever you have a range, a date starting and a date end, that is your billing cycle. 31 days for this one, okay? So March to 10th is when this going to actually be reported to the credit bureau, right? So that lets me know right here that my statement is reported on April the 10th, which is 6 days after the due date. So I got 6 days on this one. And like I said, same rules apply. If it falls on the weekend, it'll probably be the Friday before. But on this one, I only have 3 days. I only have 3 days on my Navy Federal one. But on my Capital One card, I have 6 days before it reports. So if I was to run up this $4,000 limit right here, then I know that if I don't want to pay any interest, I would need to pay it by the 4th. But I definitely need to get it back under 30% by the 10th, because that's when the credit bureau is going to actually know. And right here is another clue. Right here where it says available credit as of March the 10th. So that's the balance that was reported to the credit bureau as of March the 10th. So those are 2 ways that you can see actually when it was going to be reported to the credit bureau. All right. So guys, I hope this really made sense to you guys. I didn't want to get too deep and have this video too long, but let me know if this makes sense to you, that you want to always know when your statement is going to close, especially when it comes down to your credit utilization. Y'all make sure you give this video a thumbs up if it showed you some new information. You want to always pay attention to your credit card statements. All the little fine print will let you know what's going on and what kind of situation you could get in. Like I was saying, you want to look at the different summaries that's in there. They're in there for a reason. They're trying to help you. So don't ignore those, okay? Make sure that you're paying your credit cards some attention every time that you get your statement. Excuse me, guys, I got strangled. So if you have not seen my other videos where I talk about the credit cards, I'm going to make a quick playlist and I'm going to link it above for you guys to check that out. You need to know everything that you need to know about credit cards before you even decide to apply for one. That's how a lot of people get in trouble, because they don't understand how they work and all those other ins and outs. I got you covered on this channel, so no worries, no worries. Guys, make sure that if you are needing any one-on-one help, that you are signing up for the Credit Ready program. That information will be in the description as well as the pinned comment. Anything else that you may need from me, make sure you guys are emailing me at starrknowscredit@gmail.com, and I try my best to answer all your questions at a timely manner. Thank you so much again, and make sure you check out these next 2 videos so you can get some more financial education. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.